My family walked out on my wedding. Hours later, my father returned with the police. I used to believe weddings were about love. White dresses, soft music, promises whispered under chandeliers and flowers. I was wrong. My wedding was about power, control, and punishment. And it became the day my family lost me forever. Chapter 1. The day I thought I'd won. The ballroom smelled like roses and fresh linen. Sunlight poured through the tall glass windows, turning everything golden. Guests were seated. Music played softly, and I stood behind the doors in my wedding dress, hands shaking, not from fear, but from happiness. I was finally free. Free from my father's rules. Free from my mother's silence. Free from a family that measured love by obedience. Ethan held my hands and smiled. "You ready?" he whispered. I nodded. "I've waited my whole life for this." The doors opened. I stepped forward. And that's when I noticed something was wrong. My side of the aisle was empty. Rows and rows of empty chairs. No parents. No siblings. No aunts, uncles, cousins. Just nothing. A low murmur rippled through the room. I stopped walking. "Ethan," I whispered, "where's my family?" He frowned. "They said they were coming." I scanned the room again, my heart pounding harder with every second. Then my phone vibrated. A message. "Dad, this wedding will not happen with our blessing. You chose him over your family. Live with it." My knees almost gave out. My mother didn't call. My brother didn't text. No explanation, no warning. They had planned this to humiliate me, to punish me, to remind me that in their world, love was conditional. I swallowed hard, lifted my chin, and did the unthinkable. I walked down the aisle anyway. Chapter 2, saying I do without them. People stared. Some whispered. Some looked uncomfortable. Some looked proud. Ethan squeezed my hands as we stood at the altar. "I'm here," he said softly, "no matter what." When the officiant asked if anyone objected, silence filled the room. And then something inside me snapped. I realized something important. My family wasn't my foundation. They were my cage. I said my vows with a steady voice. "I choose you, even if the world turns its back on me." Tears ran down Ethan's face as he said his. We kissed. Applause erupted. And for a moment, I thought it was over. I thought the worst had passed. I was wrong. Chapter 3. The calm before the storm. The reception began. Music, food, laughter. But an unease settled in my chest. My phone kept buzzing. Unknown numbers. Voicemails. Texts I didn't open. Then the music stopped. The doors at the back of the ballroom burst open. 2 police officers walked in. Behind them, my father. Tall, stone-faced, furious. The room fell silent. "Emily Carter," one officer said. "We need to speak with you." My heart dropped. Ethan stepped forward. "What is this about?" My father spoke before the officers could. "She's committing fraud," he said coldly. "And emotional manipulation. This marriage is illegitimate." Gasps filled the room. I stared at him, stunned. "You abandoned me," I said. "And now you bring cops." He didn't flinch. "You embarrassed this family," he said. "Now I'm correcting it." Chapter 4. The lie he thought would destroy me. The officers asked to speak privately. My father claimed I had stolen money from the family trust, that I had forged documents, that I was mentally unstable. Every word was a lie, but he said it confidently, like a man used to being believed. The officers asked for evidence. My father smiled. "I have it," he said, "at home." That was his mistake, because I wasn't the scared little girl he remembered. "Officer," I said calmly, "I'd like my lawyer present." My father's smile faded. "You don't need a lawyer," he snapped. "Yes," I said, meeting his eyes. Ido. Chapter 5. What my father didn't know. What my father didn't know was this. 3 years earlier, when he threatened to cut me off unless I left Ethan, I prepared. I documented everything. Every threat. Every financial transaction. Every email where he admitted control over the trust. I hired a lawyer quietly, and I secured my own inheritance legally. The trust wasn't his alone, and the money, already mine. When the officers returned, my lawyer was on speakerphone. The room listened as everything unraveled. The accusations were false. The trust documents were valid. The claims were baseless. My father's face drained of color. Then the officer turned to him. "Sir," he said, "filing a false report is a serious offense." Silence. For the first time in my life, my father looked afraid. Chapter 6: The Public Fall. The guests watched as the officers questioned my father. Whispers turned into shock, then judgment. My mother appeared at the doorway too late. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Emily," she whispered. I looked at her and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just clarity. "You had your chance," I said. The officers escorted my father out. Not in handcuffs, but in disgrace. Chapter 7: What I Gained by Losing Them. The music started again. Slowly. Applause followed. Ethan held me as I cried, not from pain, but relief. I lost my family that day, but I gained my life. We went on our honeymoon without them. We built a home without their approval. We created peace without their permission. Months later, my father tried to call. I blocked his number. Some doors don't deserve reopening. Final words. They walked out on my wedding to break me. They sent the police to control me. But in the end, they lost their daughter, and I found myself. People think revenge is loud. Courtrooms, screaming matches, public humiliation. But the strongest revenge is silence. After my wedding, I disappeared from my family's world. No calls, no visites, no explanations. I blocked every number connected to them. For the first time in my life, I slept peacefully. But my father, he couldn't stand it. Men like him don't fear losing daughters. They fear losing control. Chapter 9: My Father's First Mistake. 2 months later, a letter arrived. Not an apology, a threat. He demanded I return family assets or face legal consequences. I laughed, because what my father still didn't understand was this. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was planning. My lawyer smiled as she read the letter. "He's panicking," she said. "That means we're winning." "What happens now?" I asked. She slid a folder across the table. "We finish this." Chapter 10: The Truth Comes Out. My father had built his reputation on power and respect. But reputations are fragile. We filed a countersuit. Not emotional. Not dramatic. Precise. False police report. Financial coercion. Emotional abuse documented over years. Emails. Voice recordings. Signed threats. Everything. When the case became public, people started asking questions. Business partners pulled back. Old friends went quiet. Board members requested meetings. And suddenly, the man who once ruled every room was being avoided. Chapter 11: My Mother's Late Regret. One night, my mother showed up at my door. She looked smaller than I remembered. Older. Broken. "I should have protected you," she whispered. I believed her. But belief doesn't erase damage. "You watched him destroy me," I said softly. "And you called it love." She cried. "I didn't. I hope you find peace." I told her, but not at my expense. I closed the door. That was the last time I saw her. Chapter 12: The Courtroom Moment. The courtroom was quiet when my father entered. No confidence. No power. Just a man realizing too late that intimidation no longer worked. When it was my turn to speak, I stood tall. I wasn't abandoned because I was wrong, I said. I was abandoned because I stopped obeying. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. The judge ruled quickly. False reporting confirmed. Damages awarded. Restraining order approved. And just like that, the man who once controlled my life lost legal access to it forever. Chapter 13: What hurt him the most. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the reputation. It was this. I didn't ask him to love me. I didn't ask him to change. I simply walked away. Men like my father don't survive irrelevance. Chapter 14. 5 years later. 5 years passed. Ethan and I built a life that felt quiet and real. A home full of laughter. Careers built on choice, not pressure. Love without conditions. One afternoon, I saw my father's name in the news. Former executive, legal troubles, estranged family. I felt nothing. No victory, no bitterness, just closure. Final chapter. The wedding wasn't the end. They thought abandoning me at my wedding would break me. They thought sending the police would scare me. But that day didn't end my life. It started it. I didn't win by destroying them. I won by becoming untouchable. And that was the revenge they never saw coming. The end.